content, and also how we need to, or how we can be setting ourselves up to use social to deliver more authentic, real-time experiences. So I'd like to start with a show of hands. How many of you in the room have defined 12-month strategies for LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook? I don't mean do you have a social media strategy. I mean, do you have clear plans with unique, definable roles for each channel, across paid and organic, aligned to your marketing and events calendar that you can articulate back to the business? No. Sort of. Great. Well done. You could be in the wrong session. But in a nutshell, that's what I want to talk about today. If we park Instagram and Zing and Reddit and Snapchat and Pinterest, I'm just going to focus on LinkedIn and Twitter and Facebook and look at the different roles they play and hopefully in a way that can help us start to deliver better brand experiences and more real-time personal engagement with our audiences. At the end of the day, your social media strategy is only ever going to be as good as the sum of its parts. And in B2B, we're not paying enough attention to those individual parts. So this is where we come to the live poll, where it could all go wrong. The question that I've asked you guys, I was going to go just for another show of hands, but this year we've got this app, which is awesome. But the question that I wanted to ask was, what platforms are you currently using for B2B social? And PowerPoint can't locate the internet server or proxy server. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to hazard a guess. When I checked the results earlier, it was overwhelmingly in favour of LinkedIn and Twitter, which won't come as a surprise, I'm sure. In my experience, at least, B2B social media starts and ends with Twitter and LinkedIn. Twitter's used by 84% of B2B marketers. There are social media managers at work right now, because you didn't buy them a ticket to come to Ignite, and they're busy writing tweets, scheduling tweets, looking for retweets, searching through hashtags, planning their Motivation Monday, their Wednesday wisdom. It takes a lot of effort, a lot of time and effort to sustain a Twitter presence, to build up your audience, to find content, to maintain your engagement rates. And I'm sure any of you in the room who've actually had to do it will agree, it's hard work. Which is why we see so many dormant company Twitter accounts or corporate accounts with just a couple of hundred followers and a pinned tweet from 2015. People give up or it gets deprioritized, which is a shame because Twitter is awesome. Twitter's awesome for B2B, specifically around news and events. If you want to know what's going on in real time, you go to Twitter. If you want to know what people think, you go to Twitter. Essentially, Twitter is one big real-time consumer research panel, and it's an incredibly powerful source of data and consumer insights. Where it really comes into its own is during events. You give me an industry, and I'll show you a spike in activity on Twitter around events. Of course, the other use for Twitter, common use for Twitter, is complaints. It's where people go to complain. If someone takes the time to complain to you on Twitter, don't be that company that provides a phone number or an email address and asks them to get in touch with customer service. Here's a Thursday thought for you. Stop jumping on irrelevant hashtags and start building out your Twitter strategy around events, social listening and insights for the whole business, share that data with everybody, and customer service and product support as well, actually. If you take nothing else from this session today, when you're back at work tomorrow, talk to whoever's responsible for customer service and product development, or product support, and figure out a way to address complaints and queries directly on social. But let's get back to our typical B2B social media strategy. LinkedIn is used by 94% of B2B marketers. On LinkedIn, our social media managers are plugging away on the company page, sharing updates, sharing blogs on LinkedIn Pulse, possibly running some paid activity, probably targeting the C-suite, because that's how we all think of LinkedIn. It's where the C-suite hangs out. But I guarantee you that what our social media managers are struggling with is with how to get the business more engaged with LinkedIn. Employee advocacy is a huge part of success on LinkedIn. Tapping into those real-world professional networks of everyone in the business is really as simple as getting everybody engaged, liking and sharing your company updates. But it's really hard to affect a shift in company culture towards employee advocacy. Employees need to be supported in their use of LinkedIn, and I'm not talking about setting the sales team up with LinkedIn Sales Navigator. We need to do more to help the business as a whole understand why LinkedIn is important and why everyone needs to get involved. And that actually starts from the onboarding process with new staff as they join the company and continues throughout. Now, the other area where our social media managers may be struggling is with LinkedIn Paid. LinkedIn marketing solutions have never been better. InMail is now available on a self-serve basis. You no longer have to guarantee 10K quarterly minimum spend in order to access InMail. They've recently launched lead forms. They've announced integration with Marketo and Eloqua. You can now bring your marketing automation data into LinkedIn and create matched audiences. That's fantastic. The other area to consider is targeting. All too often we see targeting campaigns set up purely by job title or industry. Start using group membership targeting and skills targeting, and I guarantee you your CTRs will go up. It's a really exciting time in B2B social, and we need to make sure that we're set up to take advantage of new functionality like those lead forms on LinkedIn and that MA integration, those new tools as they come online. And that demands that we take a step back, reset our perspective, which I don't see enough of in social, because it's still largely the case that the role of social is not clearly defined or understood by the business. Responsibility for social media often gets given to a junior marketing or PR exec, or it gets given to someone who already has a whole other job to do. Does that sound familiar to anyone? Social media gets treated like a junior partner in the business, but social is not a junior partner in the business. Social media is the business. Social media is the best scale contact opportunity the business has. The social department could be driving as many conversations as all of the best sales reps put together. But how many marketers are setting themselves up to achieve that ambition? Not enough, in my opinion. And the reason is that social is a really complicated and misunderstood area of marketing, across organic and paid, across many and varied platforms, formats, targeting parameters, integration with CRM, integration with marketing automation, data capture, social listening and insights. It's hard. Which brings me back to my opening point about the need for defined strategies for each platform. We need to move beyond content calendars and tactical asks around short-term engagement with the latest ebook or blog post, and start building our social strategies around the functionality and potential of each individual platform, across paid and organic, and taking into account the makeup and behaviour profile of our followers on those platforms. And also respecting that the platforms are all distinctly different and the approach has to vary. Now, we need to talk about Facebook. Facebook is simply too big to ignore. A B2B company that's not using Facebook is a bit like a company 25 years ago saying, we're not going to have a website. Yes, the usage profile of people on Facebook is different to that of LinkedIn. Yes, people typically aren't on Facebook for work. People use Facebook to be distracted and entertained. Show them something great that happens to be work-related, and they'll click on it. To do a bit more research around how B2B audiences stack up on social media, I looked at TrackMaven's 2016 B2B social media industry report. These are just some examples, but across professional services, computer hardware and software, financial services, machinery, aerospace, automotive aftermarket, logistics, and in fact, B2B overall, the average audience size is bigger on Facebook than on Twitter. If you're interested in the industries where that's not the case, it's pharmaceutical, chemical, medical, and engineering. So if you work in those industries, you could probably leave now. But we don't. But the part of the problem is that there are too many senior stakeholders in B2B marketing who don't use Facebook, who don't like it, and as a result, it gets overlooked. It's a bit unfair on iStockman here, but we really need to set aside our personal preferences in the same way that we're used to doing with traditional media. I don't read Tunnels and Tunnelling magazine or Medical Design Technology magazine, but I understand the importance of those magazines for reaching certain types of audiences. And the people who read those magazines are on Facebook, if you know where to look. The way to reach them, of course, is through advertising. Facebook has over 50 million active business pages on the platform, but only 6% of them are actively advertising, which is bonkers. What an amazing untapped opportunity. Without question, Facebook is the most cost-effective and scalable advertising platform on the market right now. And Facebook video, actually, is the best ad buy for your money right now. In 5 years' time, we'll be looking back on how historically amazing the rates were. We see CPM rates as low as £2 or £3 on Facebook that will be £20 or £30 in 2, 3, 4 years' time. And you should really think of Facebook as TV. That's how Facebook sees itself. Facebook doesn't care about LinkedIn or Twitter. Facebook's going after Amazon and Netflix. In the US, the average person spends approximately 60 minutes each day on Facebook, Instagram, and Messenger. That's almost 50 times more time than the average person spends on Twitter. And to put it into context, the average LinkedIn user only spends a couple of hours a month on the site. Facebook rant over. Let's talk about content. Another question. How many of you have a defined annual budget for social media content? Okay, a couple, 2 or 3, that's good. I think it's crazy that there aren't more of us who can say, yes, they've got a defined budget for social content. I mean, content is the most is the most hungry channel in marketing, content-hungry channel in marketing. And if anyone needs a budget for content, it's the social team. I'll go a step further and say I think the social team should own the content agenda. They know what the market's talking about. They know what drives the best engagement. All the thought leadership pieces, the blogs, the ebooks from the subject matter experts, they need to be complementary, not the main event. Content, of course, is the wrong word because we're in the business of dialogue. And one way to start delivering more meaningful brand experience on social is to stop pushing the business agenda and start looking for ways to be part of the conversation. Our client Standard Life did that brilliantly last year during the budget. The budget provided an opportunity for Standard Life to reach a really important B2B audience, financial advisors. They were looking for innovative and cost-effective ways to deliver reach and engagement with the advisor market, as well as a clear sense of Standard Life as a company that's listening to and supporting advisors. The answer was the Advisor Voice campaign. This was a real-time social campaign that was designed around the views and opinions of a panel of independent financial advisors. Now, Financial advisors are an audience that doesn't appreciate being told what to do or how to think, particularly by a provider, but then that's typical of a lot of B2B audiences. They're experts in their own right, so the formation of the advisor panel and the decision to lead with third-party opinions rather than Standard Life's own opinion was really key to the success of this campaign. The campaign did brilliantly well, not least of all because it won a B2B award last year, but it delivered great customer experiences and it dominated over the competition during the budget, winning a share of voice of 85%, which compares to the previous year where they won a competitive share of voice of 31%. In another example, we did some A and B testing during a recent campaign for Dell EMC, where we compared ads that were on brand with static images to ads that were off brand with GIFs. Your dancing man here, he outperformed the brand ads by 194% on Facebook. So the message that brands like Standard Life and Dell EMC have taken on board is that we have to stop fearing failure in B2B social and let the market steer us on what is good and bad content. So now let's talk about our audiences. How many of you truly know the makeup of your social media audiences? Do you know where they're from? Do you know what they're talking about? Do you know what decision-making power they have? And crucially, do you know who's missing? Before we can think about optimizing the customer experience on social, we really need to know who our audiences are. There are 3 questions we can ask ourselves. Who are we supporting? Because when we understand who our followers are, or who they aren't in some cases, it's really helpful and much easier to connect content, channels, and tactics. The second question to ask ourselves is, what moments are we supporting? What moments are important to us? Do you know when and where the buyer interacts with the brand? And have you worked out how social fits into that process? And the third question is, how will social marketing support those moments? Once you've identified the moments on social that you need to support, you can then work out what resources you need to support the experience, the customer experience. For example, if social media is about supporting awareness and top-of-funnel activity, the social media team needs to be equipped with systems, data, and budget to go out and deliver against that objective. And then after that, you need to work out how social can be supporting moments lower down the funnel, which could mean implementing pixels, lead forms, creating custom audiences from your MA data. And I'll let you into a secret. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, I'd go as far to say your social media strategy will never be perfect. It's a living, breathing thing that is constantly changing, constantly moving. And while it can't be perfect, it must be authentic. Stop telling people what to think and what to buy. Stop knee-jerking into short-term tactics to deliver one-off engagements. Work out what the long-term goals are and how social can support those long-term business objectives. And also humanize the brand. Share stories about what inspires you, about the people in the businesses, and about the problems that you want to solve. GE is an example of a brand that does that really well. So don't strive for perfection, but do make sure that you're set up to tap into the moment and engage in real time. Some of you may have noticed that the Crocodile is here today broadcasting on Facebook Live. They're here now. Give the guys a wave. You'll find a card on your seat to give you some more information about a URL that you can go to catch some highlights and exclusive interviews that you may have missed today. But this is really an exercise for the agency in putting our money where our mouth is, because as an agency, we really believe that wherever possible, marketing should be real-time and personal, and social media gives us the tools and the technologies to do that. Facebook Live will soon be as big as TV for advertising, certainly around those Super Bowl moments in B2C. We don't have time today to cover off topics such as mobile and video, but they are forces, critical forces, that have already converged. So we need to ask ourselves, what have we done about that? Are we in step and are we curving with that trend? Which brings me to the end of the presentation. We're on booth 41, if anyone wants to come by for a chat. Or if anybody has any questions, we might have a couple of minutes before we have to wrap up. Hi.
Do you have any tips on tracking leads via... Hi. Do you have any tips on tracking leads via social media? Because the thing I always talk to my social media manager about is I love the growth, all the traffic, and the performance is really great. The metrics look fantastic. Yep. But how can I see how it's coming through to leads into organisation and see the success and track the channels a little bit more effectively?
Yeah, so very difficult to do, but getting increasingly easier with things that I've mentioned today, like the lead gen forms that you can use on Facebook and on LinkedIn. Also making sure that you're plugging in where you can to Salesforce, for example, or integrating with your MA platform if you have one. For organic, it's harder to do, of course, but I suggest there that using tracking links and also setting up events and conversions in Google Analytics is a good place to start. Any other questions?
Robyn, what's your Twitter handle?
The Robyn Pierce. Okay, great. Well, thanks so much. Thank you.